What I love about the Thames is there's such a huge variety as you go along. It's like sometimes it feels like you're in the countryside, and then sometimes you're in the city and then back in the countryside. It's a lovely variety along the river.
The thing I like most about the Thames is the amount of activity that's on it. The people walk around it and they row in it, and you get the royal boats going up and down, and you've got Oxford and Cambridge. I love the activity.
My favourite thing is that we are able to row on the river pretty well every day of the year.
I'm Joe Pecorelli and I work for the Zoological Society of London, and with the Zoological Society every year we sample fish in the river to understand how fish use the river, to understand how healthy the populations of fish are in the river. And in the Thames there are about 120 different species of fish. Some of them come in just for certain periods of the year. Others migrate through, and some of them live in the river all the time. And what we were doing was taking a sample by seine netting, looking at the fish that we could find here just at Hammersmith Bridge. And today we found stickleback, which is a species of fish that you find all around the British Isles, in rivers all around. We found dace, which is the most common species of freshwater fish in the Thames. And we found bass, which is a really nice thing to find because that's a marine fish that comes in from the ocean. Plastic in the river is a terrible problem, not just for the river actually, for aquatic environments around the world. Plastic is everywhere, all over the foreshore. And what happens to this plastic is it drifts around in our rivers, slowly breaking down into smaller and smaller pieces, and then it starts to become eaten by fish and even shrimps and things. And once it's ingested, so once it's eaten, it starts to accumulate in the creatures of the river, which is a serious problem and can ultimately impact on their health. A study last year showed that about 70% of small flounder, so these are tiny fish that live in the river, have bits of plastic inside them. And of course the seals that eat those fish, and even the humans that eat those fish, will then start to be full of plastic. And really, we don't know what the long-term effects will be of that. For sure, it will be bad.
So my name is Chris Coon and I work for Thames 21. Thames 21 is an environmental charity. We work on all the rivers of London, and we work with local people, volunteers, to try and improve and look after all the rivers. The amount of plastic that ends up in the Thames, here's a terrible admission, we really don't know. So it's one of the reasons we're trying to learn more about the rubbish we collect. So we know what we pick up, we know what we put into bags, and we know what we take away. And every year about 200 to 300 tonnes of rubbish comes out of the river. Not all of that is plastic, but quite a lot is. But at the moment we don't know how much plastic is in the river. We know that of the rubbish we collect, a lot of the items we find lots of plastic bottles, we find loads and loads of items which are from food packaging, food waste, so crisp packets and chewing gum wrappers, things like that. We find a lot of that, but the admission is we have no idea, and it's something we're really interested to find out, because all the rubbish that's in the river is just being conveyed out into the sea, and once it's in the sea, we know the damage it causes. We know the damage it causes to fish and to birds, but at the moment we genuinely don't know how much is in there, and it's a sad admission. We just know what we pick up. Plastic is damaging in lots of different ways. So the thing about plastic, one of the reasons we use it for so many things, is it's really strong, it's cheap, it's very light, so we use it for loads of stuff. but also because it's so durable, because it doesn't break down very easily, it lasts in the environment for a long time, and it just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, it doesn't really rot away. So one of the ways it affects wildlife is they eat it. They eat the little pieces. So a bird flying over the sea might look down, see a little flash of light from something in the water, think it's the sparkles from the side of a fish, dive down, pick it up in its mouth, and it's a piece of plastic. And so their stomachs get filled up with plastic. Now if your stomach is full of plastic, they can get tangled up in your insides, you can't absorb food, you can't eat, digest food, you could either starve, or even if you don't starve, it can make you ill so that you're much more likely to succumb to diseases. The plastic that spends a long time in the sea, that can get chemicals coating it. Chemicals will actually attach themselves to the plastic. So even though the plastic isn't poisonous, the plastic can start to build up chemicals. That has a problem. Larger items of plastic can tangle around things, so they get their legs trapped or their wings trapped, or they get water, or they get the plastic wrapped around their neck. So it has a lot of different impacts. Because it's so durable and because it lasts such a long time, we really don't want it in our environment. It'll do nobody any good.
We are designers and manufacturers of swimwear made from post-consumer PET, which is basically plastic bottles, which is turned into our fabric, which makes our shorts. So we have a project as part of our business, which is to ultimately convert litter bottles into our fabric. So what happens to those bottles is they get collected, they get cleaned and crushed and made into flakes, which is basically shredded up. At that point, there is essentially a sort of heat cleaning, and it's called extrusion process, whereby the plastic bottle essentially gets melted down and stretched back into tiny fabric fibers. Those fibers become fabric, those fabrics become our shorts. I think it comes a little bit from, as you grow up, you become much more aware of the impact that you're having on the people around you and the environment around you. And I think, it just dawned on me one day, I looked around and I saw all this plastic, and I thought, this plastic is never going to go away. It doesn't go away in hundreds of years. And you've then got scientific research coming out that's saying that, there's a possibility that the, future generations, hundreds of years down the line, will be able to identify our footprint on the planet through plastic. And I just thought, something needs to be done. We need to take some action. I thought, and if everyone does a little bit, you can create change. So we thought, well, we have a small business, but we're responsible in that business to try and encourage other people and to be respectful ourselves to our environment. So it was really that kind of drove me to try and find ways of doing our business as best we can in terms of the environment. I think what individuals can do, they can either just sort of positive action themselves. They can just think about the things they see around them. They can make little decisions to pick up a bottle that's on the ground where they could just walk past it. If they want to take it further, then I would recommend they get in touch with some of the organisations like Thames 21, like Marine Conservation Society, like Surfers Against Sewage is another good example of people that are all looking for volunteers to get involved and help with the clean-up situation that we've got. But I think the longer term solution to this is prevention. So it's about changing our behaviour. So I think individuals need to change behaviour. So we need to learn to not rely on plastic so much. Buy a metal water bottle, take a tote bag with you wherever you go. Just try and cut down on the plastic that you use.